Welcome back to the Student Hub Live. Well, in this session, we're going to focus on the question, what I wish I knew before I started studying STEM with the Open University. And we're going to talk to two students. We've got Emma Boland and Mark Parker. Emma, you're doing an undergraduate degree at the moment.
I am.
Mark, you've gone on to do a postgraduate degree after doing an undergraduate degree.
That's right,
so
yeah.
we're going to hear about what you're studying. Tell us all what you're doing.
So I'm on the Bachelor of Science in Natural Sciences and Astronomy and Planetary Science route.
That's a mouthful.
It is a little bit, isn't it? I'm actually on my last level 1 module starting in a couple of days. Excited about it. One of my weaker subjects, but I'm excited about it, and then I'm excited to go up to level 2 next year, hopefully.
Brilliant. Okay, excellent. And what are you studying, Mark?
Well, as an undergrad, I studied mathematics with the Open University. Then I moved on to do a PhD in physics education.
And what's your PhD about?
Well, people have multiple choice questions, and they're quite easy to mark for a computer, but my PhD is finding out whether we can get a machine to mark sentence answers where people type.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, well, that's a Wordle question. We've asked people what they're most excited about, so let's see some of the 3 words that you said when we asked what you were most excited about. Learning new things, learning is key, meeting people, progression, improving confidence, doing a degree, opening doors, learning more, experiments, last level 1 module, last few steps to go, social engagement, something to focus on, chatting, routine, new, career, passing, where it takes me, experiments, atoms, physics, opening doors, attending tutorials, brilliant, challenging, meeting tutors, community, self-discovery, where will this lead? Moving forward, stationery. Well, stationery is always important. So lots of key things there. I guess this is a very interesting area for you and has a lot of potential for the way we learn.
Yeah, because we can apply that to the ICMAs that maybe some of the students have done, and we can have a broader range of assessment that can engage with the student by giving them feedback at the same time so they can learn in real time.
Brilliant. Gosh, so real artificial intelligence in action. Excellent. So our question then is, what do you wish you knew before you started? And I'm hoping that you'll impart some advice from all your mistakes that you may have made or things that other students may have told you. So we've got mostly level 1 students out there right now who are embarking on their learning journeys. What do you wish that you'd known when you were just starting?
I wish I'd known just how much hard work I'd need to put into my degree. It's distance learning, and you can easily get distracted studying your modules, easily distracted by, say, Strictly Come Dancing on the telly. Mm-hmm. And you really need to apply yourself and yeah, make sure you really plan ahead so that anything that comes up unexpected, you don't end up getting too far behind on your studies.
Because very often things come up that are unexpected. Very, 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 very often indeed.
Definitely.
But here's my question then for you, Emma, because I was talking to somebody the other day who said the one thing I never regretted, you'll sort of always regret actually stressing so much. So stressing is not a good thing to do because ultimately it kills a lot of time. So what is the point then of knowing how much hard work? What would have been different about your approach then had you known how much work was involved when you'd started studying? Would you have planned your time differently? Would you have reallocated things? Would you not have watched Strictly Come Dancing?
Yeah, I would have put EastEnders to the side as well. I think I definitely would have planned a bit better, especially with my first level 1 module.
Right.
I guess I took it for granted. I was a bit naive, I suppose. Didn't realise actually how much hours I would need to put into that first level 1 study. But I'm now going into my 3rd year with the OU. And I guess I've gotten into a routine of how best to plan my weeks, my months, even my year, because you soon find your next year goes so quickly. But yeah, definitely preparing well is key to your study.
So what do you do now then that you could have done differently then? Bearing in mind that we're not expecting new students to get it perfect. I mean, you have to wriggle around and see how learning is going to fit into your life. Every student's very different, and what works for one student may not work for another. But if you were to go back and think about the volume of work that you did, are there any sort of practical things that you can suggest?
Definitely, I write to-do lists. There's some really good student planners out there, which even though I don't use one, I've heard they're really, really good for planning your weeks and your months ahead, writing in your deadline dates for your assignments and your ICMAs. I've got loads of notepads, which I'm sure everybody else has, and I make sure that it's all written down in front of me, and it's just plan well in advance, which I didn't initially do when I first started.
Okay, what were do you remember that far back?
Yeah, so I've got two, one from the beginning and one from sort of the end. Building on what Emma said, if you have the chance to sort of begin early, so if the module website opens a couple of weeks before the module officially begins, get on there and start having a look at what's going to be happening so that you could try and get a head start, because any time that you get ahead is useful because things happen and it gets eaten away. And second, sort of keep the deadlines in mind and try and plan around the deadlines, because that time can get eaten away quite quickly. But then from the end, I sort of wish that I knew that I could do a PhD with the OU from the beginning. That's something that I only discovered as I went further along and looked into it, and it's something that we should publicise more, I think.
Would you change anything about your career in terms of your undergraduate degree if you'd known the OU did PhDs?
I went through my OU degree and sort of just took chances as they came. So I'm not sure how I would do it differently, because I wound up doing something that I would never have expected doing when I began, but I really enjoyed doing it. So I think that it turned out okay.
Yeah. I often think if you go with what you're interested in, you eventually end up being interested in the things that you're doing because you just keep following those natural paths. But sometimes, as I was talking to colleagues from the student support team about, it's very important to sort of bear in mind where there might be cut-off points or things that block you from potentially doing something. HJ and Anne, how is everything over there?
We're doing really well in the chat. We are curious about one thing. Joanne wants to know if Emma is doing S282 and S283.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I would have started that this year, but I deferred MST 124 back in February, so I'm restarting that one this October. So I hope to actually do those modules next year.
Fantastic. And we've been asking people in the chat for their top study tips as well. And Joy has a great one. What I learned last year for studying was simply to keep up and make sure you make time each week to study. So just the basics, make sure you get that in place first. Ruth has said, I found to make sure I take breaks and relax to be able to study more efficiently. I definitely agree with that. I've had those nights where I've worked on a TMA late into the night, and actually if I just went to bed and started again fresh the next day, I probably would have done a lot better.
We've also got Hayley, who suggests working in chunks for 25 or 45 minutes of study at a time.
That sounds like a great plan. But what's this about taking a whiteboard into the bedroom?
Well, Hayley likes to use her whiteboard to put down important dates and TMA questions just as a reminder. But apparently someone's husband wouldn't be too happy if they started bringing stationery into the bedroom.
Ingrid's husband would lose the plot, I hear. Okay, yeah, it's important to have a space, I guess, for your studies, and maybe not the whole house is appropriate for that. Okay, Emma, you've used other students and sort of learning communities, and you say that that's been really important to you. You've used like WhatsApp groups and various sort of ways of connecting with other people. How has that been useful?
It's a good support network, especially like if you are studying late at night and you're stuck on, say, a physics question or a maths question, and you just can't get your head around it. If you're part of a WhatsApp group for the module that you're currently studying, it's great just to put the question out there, and there will be someone that will reply.
No, you're not advocating getting answers, are you?
No. Like MST 124 has activities that you can do through the textbooks, so, and it gives you the answers at the back. But sometimes, especially for me, it will give me the answer at the back, but I can't figure out how they've gotten that answer. So asking another student's perspective on, have you done this? And they're like, yeah, well, how did you get that answer? And yeah, it helps with my learning.
Yeah. So it's important as part of the process, I guess. I mean, it's very important to emphasise that, these places are not moderated by the OU, and you shouldn't share answers on there because it's illegal. So, and you'll get lots and lots of trouble if you do that. But it's that process and that working through things that you found useful.
Definitely is.
Was it just the learning, or was there any sense of community or being in it together that helped?
There is a sense of community in those groups because you're not just sharing about your topic, you're sharing about, some people share some personal stuff in there as well. Like it's their birthday or a family member or you've just gotten married, something like that. And it's a sense of people saying congratulations and that, which is nice as well. It's a community sort of vibe in those.
Space.
Yes, definitely.
Have you ever connected with other people and found that useful?
It was a long time ago, so stuff like WhatsApp and Facebook wasn't as prevalent, but we did have a forum on M303, which was the first presentation of it. So all of us didn't really know what we were doing, and we did have that community kind of, well, does anyone know what's going on with this, or is anyone nervous for the exam or whatever? And it was good to have that just so I wasn't on my own.
Yeah. Do you find that you learn better on your own or with other people?
I personally like to work through things on my own, but I can discuss things, because we used to have the face-to-face tutorials. I would always go along to those and see how other people were doing things or if the tutor had any recommendations. So sort of I'll do things on my own and then I'll take it out to the community when I've got confident enough to talk about it.
Yeah, brilliant. One thing that students may really not know about is tutorials, because until you're an OU student, that can be quite a unique experience. So I'd like to ask you both about your advice on tutorials, both face-to-face and increasingly we have online tutorials, which are fab, because you can do them in your pyjamas.
Yes.
So with your study buddy there and your cup of tea.
The online tutorials were completely new to me when I first started with the OU, but I think it's a great little bit of kit that's used to do the online tutorials, and you can listen to the tutor, you can speak to other students online in the chat box. It's a great little interactive tool, I believe, and if you want to, you can speak on your microphone as well and ask questions. So I think it's really good, even though you're not in a classroom environment.
And how did you find then, if your learning preference is to learn alone, but you were going to some of these tutorial groups and learning with others, you say you enjoyed discussing things with other people. How did that help consolidate your learning?
So you could be doing something in mathematics, you could be doing something one way.
Yeah.
And with math, you want to try and be lazy sometimes, because if you can do it faster, then you're going to save more time. So I might have a solution that takes 4 pages. The tutor might talk through something, I'll be like, oh, well, I can cut that page out, and that's helpful for the exam or when I'm doing TMAs and this kind of thing.
Brilliant, excellent. HJ and Anne, how's everyone at home? And are there any questions that people would like to put to these students about things that they're worried about?
Well, there was a great question from Joy, actually. She says she's heard about deferring your studies quite a bit talk today, and she just wants to know what exactly that is.
Oh, OK. Now, the best people to speak to about the student support team, but as somebody who has deferred, can you tell us what it is and what it means?
It means, so in my example, I started studying 2 30-credit modules last September. And it got to February and I realised that due to life and commitments, I couldn't actually put enough time into one of my modules. So I rang student support. At this point, I'm not afraid to say it, I was actually in tears because I was getting so frustrated because I felt like I was letting myself down. Rang student support and they were absolutely fantastic. And they said to me, well, you can stop that module now and you can actually basically restart it again in October, which is actually what I'm doing at the moment. So this maths module, I stopped it in February and I'm restarting it again, and obviously in a couple of days. Student support would be able to give more information in regards to what the deferral actually means. But yeah, it's...
A lot of students do it, and the great thing about the OU is the flexibility. So it's very, very common to do that, and whilst, you know, I think when we're starting our studies, we don't often think, oh, things are going to go wrong, but sometimes they do, and it's great to know that if that happens, there are those various options to defer.
Yeah.
Yeah? Does that answer that question?
Yes, we were just curious, and I'm glad we got filled in on that one. And apart from that, we've just been sharing other tips. So what Cassandra said, which I think is a good idea to keep in mind, is don't get too ahead with your study, because when it comes to tutorials, you might be talking about something you did way back, and then it might not seem so relevant to what you're doing. And Hayley said, look at study timings and work your plan around it. Also write your TMA question somewhere. Perhaps that whiteboard she's got to keep it in mind during your studies. And Joanne agrees that tutorials are definitely worth attending to meet other students, to speak to your tutor and get a bit more social with the OU as well.
Brilliant. Okay. Now let's just end by thinking about organisation and study spaces. So some people have these amazingly organised study spaces. I'm not one of those people who do that sort of thing. But how did you organise and get sort of study into your life so that you then built up this routine?
Well, my study space is my dining room table in my living room. And I have all my textbooks in front of me, I have my laptop in front of me, all my stationery next to me, and it is all littered around the living room. Yeah. But I know where everything is.
Yeah.
I know where the space is, and if I've got my to-do list next to me, I know what I need to be doing, and it gets me into my routine of studying that next couple of pages in my textbook.
So does your to-do list, does that have tasks in it then? How does that look?
It has, so my aim is usually, especially with the maths textbooks, I aim to do, say, 10 pages on each session that I'm studying. And then on my notebook, I put down what date I want to do that by, so that I cover all the relevant topic by the time the next one needs to start. Because I'm one that I don't like to get too far behind. Because I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. How did you organise your space and your time?
I mean, you don't need the full layout of my room or whatever, but I had a table, I had my pad, my calculator, my books, and I had my TMAs on the right, and a notepad as well for noting down when I should have certain deadlines. And behind me I had a whiteboard, because with math you like to work through things before you go through them. But
there's a lot of love for whiteboards in the chat room, yeah.
Need to get one.
Whiteboard envy, that's a new thing.
But I would sit down there and that would be like my space. I would focus there for a couple hours and then take a break. But then that was it. When I was there, that was, I would be studying. That was and that was important for me, because when you're at home, there's a lot of things that can distract you. And just to be able to break it into chunks, because if you try to sit there for 10 hours, that would be too difficult and you probably wouldn't get much done.
No, absolutely. Yeah, people are saying that Strictly Come Dancing is a big distraction. So I was talking with somebody the other day who said that to procrastinate, he watched not one but 2 videos about napkin folding, which I thought was ultimately pointless. So at least Strictly, I guess, has some benefits to it. What's your final piece of advice for students who may not anticipate any of this stuff going wrong, who may be sitting there with their beautiful, well-organised study spaces all rearing to go, super excited and feeling like they're going to conquer the world?
Definitely make sure you are prepared for what's coming ahead. Preparation is key, and planning. And if you can, obviously you're starting your new degree, you're so excited about it. I'm still excited about mine. Try and network with like-minded people. Go on to the likes of Twitter, onto social media, and network with people that are in the industry that you're studying towards. I found that really good for me, and getting those connections, because they can really work for you.
Brilliant, excellent. Thank you, Emma.
For me, it would be manage expectations. So you'll have some really good days where everything goes right, you'll get high marks, and that feels great. But you'll also have some difficult days where things don't go right. And it's just not getting too carried away when it's going well, and not getting too down in the dumps when it's going wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We did a workshop, actually. We do a lot of these Student Hub Live workshops, and one of them was called Next Year It's Going to Be Different. And we were thinking about some of the things, because sometimes you can start your next module and think, right, this year I'm going to be super organised, I'm going to get everything done, it's all going to be on time. And we have all of these goals and expectations, and we think, it's all going to be perfect. But that can be quite unrealistic and quite sort of overwhelming at times, and perhaps just picking up 1 or 2 things to focus on and really nail are important.
I think also I've learned is not to be too hard on yourself. If you don't get that mark that you were achieving on your next assignment, I'm very critical of myself, and I'm learning to not be as hard on myself in regards to my marks, or not keeping up with the timetable that's scheduled.
Yeah, no, it's important to be flexible in yourself as well, isn't it? Brilliant. Well, Mark and Emma, thank you so much for coming along. I hope you've enjoyed that, and that's given you lots to think about. So plenty of advice there, and plenty of advice in the chat as well. We're next going to focus on the AL perspective. That's the tutor. And I'm going to be joined by Vic and Nigel. But before that, we've got another video where we're going to talk about the OU STEM tutor support that you'll receive as an OU STEM student. See you in a minute.